Hey, today I will be talking about the 12 labors of Hercules and its connection with the Zodiac. In the Orphic hymns, or in the hymns of Orpheus, and these are a set of pre-classical poetic compositions, 87 of them, and they address to various deities. This collection is attributed to Orpheus and is written in the voice of Orpheus, who was a Thracian bard, legendary musician, renowned poet, and prophet. These works were most likely composed in Asia Minor, possibly in the 2nd or 3rd century AD. So in the Orphic hymns, in the Scholiast of Hesiod, also in Porphyry, the 12 labors of Hercules are connected with the 12 signs of the zodiac, with Hercules being considered as a symbol of the sun in its passage through the 12 signs. The labors can be seen as those which each must perform in his zodiac or cycle of evolution, that is, the transmuting of the lower or malign influences of the 12 signs of the zodiac, that the higher and uplifting powers of each sign may lend their aid to one's onward climb. Now, these labors are not performed in the order in which the signs follow each other in the zodiac, and Hercules, being a sun god, began his first task or labor in the sign ruled by the sun, Leo. The first labor is associated with the zodiac sign Leo, and it was to kill the Nemean lion. The forces of Leo in higher aspects are strength, courage, and love. The lower aspects are self-indulgence, cowardice, and a weak, uncontrolled love nature which makes its possessor the prey to all the raging lower passions. So it was these qualities that Hercules had to fight. For like the Nemean lion, which devastated the land, they are the seed of Typhon. And indeed, they do devastate the life of man and bring misery to the race. Hercules traced the lion to a cave which had 2 openings, one of which he stopped up, then entered the other and choked the lion to death. The 2 avenues or openings of manifestation, the one opening outwardly, that is animal indulgence, and the other opening inwardly in the mind as a desire to indulge self, but to appear loving. So the outer opening Hercules stopped up by refusing to use his powers in a merely animal way. Then he entered within the mind opening and choked the lion by refusing to allow thoughts of self-indulgence and thoughts concerning the lower aspects. After his victory, Hercules wore the lion's skin, which no weapon of man could penetrate. In life, when we conquer and balance the hard qualities and our fear of giving offense or facing criticism from the world, we still cover ourselves with the lion's skin and have the courage of our convictions, which nothing, even the most dreaded one of the tongue or of misunderstanding or disapproval, can penetrate. In this way, we then have the courage of the lion and we dare to wear his skin, as this victory builds into our character a quality which is recognized by the world. When Hercules killed the lion, he found his next labor to be the necessity of fighting the lower forces expressed by Scorpio, the intimate passions degraded by lust. These forces were fittingly symbolized as a monstrous hydra with 9 heads, the middle one being immortal, which dwelt in the swamps of Lerna. The 9 heads represent the power of the 9 digits, or the cycle through which the monster of perverted intimate physical force crawls and pollutes. The 8 mortal heads of misunderstanding, profanation, pollution, self-indulgence, vulgarity, phallicism, debauchery, and perversion can and must be looped off and seared with the divine fire so they can never grow again, while the 9th head, the immortal head, must be transmuted into creative power. Now, this one immortal head in the center would be the 5th head, or number 5, which represents the true man who holds within his higher consciousness the knowledge of the truth and inherent purity of the intimate functions. This central head is divine love, which can never be killed out, and this specific head Hercules cut off and placed beneath a stone. And although its pure and immortal aspect cannot be killed, often it must be buried. Or in other words, love must be controlled and not permitted to interfere with the great task which one has undertaken, like killing the hydra of lust. It then becomes the foundation stone of individual's spiritual life. Hercules' next labor, the 3rd labor, was the capture of the golden Ceryneian deer, or hind, or Kerinitis elaphos in Greek, which was sacred to Artemis. Artemis was a goddess of chastity, hunting, and the crescent moon. The deer, therefore, symbolizes the feminine power of intuition, which is the gift of the Great Mother manifesting through Cancer, the sheath of the moon. This doe with golden horns, which symbolize powers belonging to Artemis, represents a strictly feminine attribute, yet Hercules, in spite of his masculinity, had to capture it or unfold the feminine side of his nature. Like many heroes, the deer of intuition led him to a varied chase, as only after pursuing it for an entire year or cycle, he finally captured it and carried it on his broad shoulders to Mycenae, or in English Mycenae, the temple of his soul. It is told that Apollo and Artemis, representing the sun and the moon, disputed his right to the prize, and that Artemis even accused him of slaying her golden horned doe. So this symbol shows that even then women claimed a monopoly of intuition and were apt to say that man's quiet masculine way of receiving it and expressing it killed it. And man, even today, is apt to find both the sun and the moon, or his feminine and masculine quality of love, within him, disputing over his possessions of the gift. Hence, only the strength of a Hercules can carry a golden horned hind safely on his broad shoulders. The fourth labor of Hercules was to capture and take alive the fierce Erymanthian boar that wasted the town of Psathis. When captured, Hercules carried its hind quarters and forced it to walk forward on its four legs all the way to Mycenae. This boar symbolized gluttony, which must be taken alive and tamed or controlled. That is, eating cannot be killed, but should be controlled. One must eat to live, and food should be enjoyed, but one should not eat merely to please palate or gorge animal body. Hence, the law of balance here must be carefully applied. In the way Hercules undertook this task, it can be seen the dire results of unbalanced appetite, as it can be seen feasting with the centaurs, who soon became inflamed with wine, and when Hercules shot arrows at them, in spite of the fact that these arrows were shot from the bow given to him by Apollo, the one wise and good centaur Chiron was killed by a wound Hercules would gladly have healed. The pain of the wound drove Chiron to exchange his immortality for the mortality of Prometheus. Also, by another unhappy accident, his friend Pholus was killed by dropping one of Hercules' poisoned arrows on his foot. So Hercules pursued the boar high up on the mountain, and there in deep snow trapped the boar in a net and carried it all the way to Mycenae. This labor is connected with the sign Libra. The fifth labor is connected with the sign Aquarius, and it was to cleanse the Augean stables, where the waste and litter had collected to such an extent that all farming of the surrounding land was stopped. Hercules accomplished this by turning the waters of the two great rivers Alpheus and Peneus from their courses and making them run through the stables. These stables have not been cleansed for 30 years, or 3 cycles of 10, and as these stables are the dwelling places of the cattle, or the lower animal appetites and desires in the physical body, this indicates that one must turn the living waters into the stable to cleanse it, so that the animal nature may still abide here, but in purity and health. The two rivers are the river of life or breath and the river of thought. So a man must learn how to use breath to cleanse and purify the body, and see to it that the breath stream is not polluted by the excreta of the animal often retained in the body, and turn the river of thought into channels which will cleanse the body from pollution, like wild imagination, selfishness, and lust. This task Hercules found difficult, and only succeeded when Athena, who represents wisdom, came to his aid. The next labor, 6, is associated with the sign Sagittarius, and it was that of clearing the marshes of Arcadia of the great Stymphalian man-eating birds. Arcadia was a land of simplicity and earthly happiness, symbolizing joy and a carefree, thoughtless life. Arcadia is represented as being shut in by extensive marshes of creature comforts, pleasures, and vapid amusements, into any one of which the undeveloped soul may easily sink if his thoughts or birds nest here. So here the great man-eating birds made their homes, protected by a dense growth of underbush which made access to them difficult. Birds are universal symbols of our thoughts, which should always fly upward into the pure ether and lift above the earthly things. It has always been recognized that a life of ease soon tends to generate man-eating thought forces like selfishness and indifference to others, but the higher aspect of Sagittarius gives to one the power of guiding and controlling thought, almost forcing one to carry oneself up the steep mountain path. Hercules did not know how to drive these birds away, and goddess Athena came to his help, giving him a pair of bronze crotala, noise-making clappers similar to castanets. So Hercules clashed the crotala loudly, scaring the birds out of the trees, and then shot them with a bow and arrow or with a slingshot as they took flight. The seventh labor was to capture and bring to the mainland the sacred bull which Poseidon or Neptune had caused to be born from the sea to be a fitting sacrifice to Minos, king of Crete. This Hercules accomplished by subduing and bestriding the bull as if it were a horse and guiding it through the sea to the mainland. The bull, or Taurus, symbolizes the animal procreative force, aggression, the untiring labor and toil by which one must accomplish all things upon this mundane plane. The sea is the sea of humanity. Out of this great sea, Poseidon, the ruler of its great depths, has caused a birth of a sacred bull, strong to labor on earth for sacred ideals, and yet captured and forced to labor under the harness of the king of this world. Hercules was given this task of capturing the sacred bull or controlling the labor required by the working out his karma. He accomplished this by riding the bull through the sea of humanity and guiding by its reins. However, the bull was hard to ride, and after Hercules guided it safely through the sea to the city of Tiryns, a city fabled to have been built by Cyclops, to King Eurystheus, he released the bull, which ended up at Marathon. The next task, the eighth labor, is connected with the sign Aries, and it was the task of capturing and taming the man-eating mares of Diomedes, the son of Ares or Mars, which were running wild and doing great damage. Aries is the sign through which Mars, the planet of war, ambition to rule and warlike passion can most readily find expression. It can be seen that these mares were powerful brood mares, noted for breeding a strain of war horses, hence they were savage and untamed. This idea is carried out by the fact that these mares were the property of Diomedes, the favorite of Athena. He was a great warrior, one of the bravest of the Greek heroes in the Trojan War. Horses symbolize the intellectual activity which must be harnessed and driven by the will and made to draw the chariot of man's intellect wherever one wills it to go. So when controlled, the intellectual activity, just like the horse, becomes a powerful, faithful, and reliable friend and companion. Now, there are different versions of these labors, and this is one of the versions of this labor. Hercules captured the horses, but he left them in charge to Abderos, who was his friend, whom horses trampled to death and turned loose to meet their death later in the highlands by wild beasts sent by Zeus. This labor exemplifies the symbology of number 8, or evolution, as it indicates the evolution of uncontrolled thought into creative idealism, a step in evolution which all, both individuals and the nations, must pass. The number 9 is the number of initiation, and the ninth labor was seizing the girdle of the Amazon Queen Hippolyta, the supreme test given to Hercules, and this task is under the sign Virgo. Now he was confronted with Amazons, the women who are taking the places are generally conceded as belonging exclusively to men. They were warriors or feminine disciples of the path, equipped to fight as strenuously as men. Amazons lived in a remote land near the shores of the Euxine Sea. The location of this purely mythical sea has been identical with the modern Black Sea, but in a way that sea does not fulfill the various references to the Euxine. The meaning of the name is hospitable or well or good. The main interest of Amazons was war, as it was told, which can be seen as the inner war between spirit and matter, and motherhood was secondary. And yet their queen Hippolyta wore as her chief pride the girdle or belt of Venus, a symbol of divine motherhood, which she had won by her prowess. They reared only the female children, whose right breast they cut off at birth to facilitate the handling of the bow. Male children were returned to their fathers or put to death. Hercules felt it was important to wrest from Hippolyta the belt of Venus and to dispute her right to loose the horses of spiritual warfare. Hippolyta was impressed with Hercules and his exploits and agreed to give him the belt, and would have done so if Hera had not interfered. Hera disguised herself and walked among the Amazons, sowing seeds of distrust. Alarmed, the warrior women set out to confront Hercules, and when he saw them, he thought Hippolyta had been plotting and never meant to hand over the belt, so he killed her. Hercules, deceived by the clamor of Hippolyta warrior sisters, doubted her sincerity and eventually had to pay the penalty for his lack of intuitive recognition of her. The 10th labor is associated with the sign Pisces, and it was the capturing of the oxen or cattle of Geryon. Near the distant river of Oceanus was the island Erythea, on which lived the human monster Geryon, having 3 bodies and possessing a world-famous herd of red cattle, which were guarded by shepherd Eurytion and the 2-headed dog Orthos, offered in sacrifice, a brother of the never-sleeping hellhound Cerberus. So Hercules had to trap this herd and carry it across the sea and land to Mycenae. Not much is known about this island, except that it was supposed to be in the far west. The name Erythea means red, and the cattle were red cattle, and mythologists usually associate this island with the setting sun as it drops into the ocean. But as the name is also given to a star in the constellation Pisces, forming the knot which joins the 2 fishes composing the constellation, it can be clearly seen that the 10th labor was to capture, overcome, and control the adverse influences of the sign and allow its higher influences to manifest. In a truly Piscean way did Hercules dealt with this task, by gathering up the cattle and placing them in a golden cup given to him by Helios. Of all the signs of the zodiac, Pisces individuals have the power, when determined to do so, to place all their red cattle, so to speak, in the cup of the divine love and let the rays of the spiritual sun transmute them. But like Hercules, Pisces individuals often let some of the cattle escape when little things annoy them while being transported across the sea of life. But with strength and within a year, Hercules brought them all safely to the city of Mycenae and sacrificed them to the gods. Most often it can be read they were sacrificed to Hera, who gave Hercules many troubles through his journeys. Obtaining the golden apples of Hesperides was the 11th task, and it is associated with the sign Gemini. So Eurystheus originally gave Hercules 10 labors to perform, but because in 2 of the labors he had received help, 2 more labors were given to him so he could fulfill the prophecy of the priestess of Apollo. The golden apples of Hesperides symbolize pure divine love and immortal life, and they have the same symbology as the fruit of the tree of life in the Garden of Eden, from which it was forbidden to eat. The tree on which these golden apples grew was guarded by a deathless dragon with 100 heads, who symbolizes Saturn, the great initiator, who guards the tree until the candidate has passed his 10 cycles of perfection. Apples were a wedding gift of Zeus to Hera and were preserved and guarded by 3 beautiful and pure maidens called the daughters of the evening lands, or Hesperides. They were the daughters of Erebus, or darkness, and Nyx, or night. The 3 daughters referred to the west, hence they were said to live far away on the border of the ocean where the sun disappears beneath the waves. From this it can be said that the way to find the Hesperides and the daughters of the evening land and to safely pass the guardians is to follow the pathway of the sun into the darkness of the mystic night. Hercules had to seek at random in all parts of the world as he did not know where the apples were. In his search he almost slew Ares, then he found Nereus, the ancient of the sea, a benevolent old man full of wisdom and skilled in prophecy. Nereus gave him a hint of the whereabouts of the golden apples, even though he did try to escape from giving the answer by assuming various forms. In other words, Hercules started to listen to his inner voice, the higher self. On his way, Hercules also had to wrestle Antares, the son of Poseidon. Another son of Poseidon, Busiris, had Hercules apparently securely bound upon his altar, but Hercules burst his bonds and in turn sacrificed Busiris. Hercules finally made his way to the garden of Hesperides, where he encountered Atlas holding up the heavens on his shoulders, and in pity bore the burden for him, in return for which Atlas obtained for him 3 golden apples. In assigning the 11th task to Gemini, the comparison, while vague, is true, as there are 2 aspects of humanity, man and woman, for the finding the golden apples is the ultimate balancing of the opposite poles so marked in the sign Gemini. And there are forces of good and evil in mankind striving for equilibrium. So in this case, the search for the golden apples is the effort of the soul to harmonize the 2 opposite poles and start out on a new life, a new beginning, or number 11. There was still one realm of nature not yet conquered, the underworld, and this was the 12th task, the last labor, to conquer and bring back the hellhound Cerberus from Hades. This dog guarded the gates of the lower world. He allowed all to enter, but seized all who attempted to return or escape. Cerberus was the offspring of Typhon and Echidna. He had 3 heads, a terrifying bark, and the tail of a serpent, while out of his body grew a mane of tangled serpents. Now, before attempting this task, Hercules had to be purified from all his sins and initiated into the mysteries of Eleusis. He entered the underworld, and Hermes and Athena were his guides. Hades agreed for Hercules to bring Cerberus to the surface, but only if Hercules could subdue the beast without using weapons. Cerberus was on guard, but Hercules, protected by his lion skin and his breastplate of divinity, cautiously approached the beast and overpowered Cerberus with his bare hands and slung the beast over his back. He carried him through a cavern entrance back to Eurystheus, who begged Hercules to return Cerberus to the underworld, offering in return to release him from any further labors when Cerberus disappeared back to his master. This task is connected with the sign Capricorn, as in this sign we can find the goat of Mendes, the mystic guardian of hell, in the form of black magic symbol. But the same as Hercules brought the Cerberus into the light of day, thus proving that the goat of Mendes is not the devil, nor is the dog Cerberus in reality the fearsome creature usually depicted. And this is it for today. Did you know that among the ancients, the zodiac had 10 signs instead of 12 as at present, Virgo, Libra, and Scorpio being considered as one sign? These signs were combining in the one sign masculine, Scorpio, feminine, Virgo, united by physical attraction, Libra, balancing the two. That early zodiac represented man before the separation of genders, when the androgynous man combined the three now separated expressions of life in one. That change occurred during the latter part of the third race. The 10 signs applied to hermaphrodite humanity and the 12 to the separated genders. The 12 had to be considered after the genders separated, since the divine triangle could not be fully expressed within the circle of the mundane plane except in 12 signs, and so the divine could not find its highest expression in individual until the separation of the genders had taken place. There is a whole story about this, but not today. A quote for today is by Lucius Annaeus Seneca, who said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." Thank you for being here today. This was a bit of a longer video. Nevertheless, I do hope it was interesting. If you did like it, please subscribe and press a like button and let me know what you think in the comment section below. See you in a couple of days. Bye.